And we are back. Welcome to the return of Premier League predictions and welcome to the start of what I like to call Act 2 of the season. It is hard to believe we are already a third of the way through another Premier League season. But the first 12 games are gone. We are into game week 13 and we are in what I like to call Act 2 because this is the period that encompasses the Christmas period, the New Year period, the January transfer window in the run-up to that second international break in March before we then move into Act 3 and the run-in. Today it is all about injuries and missing players as we look ahead to today's fixtures. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to jump straight to the fixture list right now. I honestly think this is the hardest week of predictions I've ever done. And genuinely, as I sit here right now, I think all three results, win, home win, draw and away win, are possible in all 10 fixtures this weekend. And I genuinely think you could sit here right now and make a genuine argument for any result in any fixture. And I don't think anyone could say anything against you. But like I say, it's going to be a really interesting weekend. There are a lot of players missing for almost every single team, which just makes it even harder to predict. But that is why we love doing these predictions videos. We like to challenge ourselves. We like to test ourselves. And hopefully we can get a lot of things right this weekend. But who knows? It's going to be an absolutely chaotic weekend. Before we get into it, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video and subscribing to the channel if you are new around here. And don't forget to hit that notification bell because we will also be doing all of the Champions League predictions, all of the Europa predictions, all of the EFL predictions, and of course all the FA Cup predictions as well as doing all of our weekly Premier League predictions like this one right here. And let's just get straight into it. And we start off with the game that probably should have been the main event game of the weekend. However, due to Champions League commitments for Manchester City, this game has to be played on Saturday. And as Paul Heyman would say, if we're not going on last, we're going on first. And it is Manchester City against Liverpool in the Saturday lunchtime kickoff. And once again, hello Liverpool fans who are continuing to riot about the fact that Liverpool always play the lunchtime game after the international break. But it is what it is. It affects both teams. Manchester City look like they could be potentially without Ederson or Haaland, even though they did train yesterday and look like they will be training today. For Liverpool, it's a case of who's going to be available coming back so late from South America. Will Núñez play? Will Luis Diaz play? Who knows? It is just really thrown up in the air right now. I have to look at it from the fact that I would assume that everyone is going to be fit for this one because as things stand, it doesn't look like anyone is outright injured in terms of major players for these sides. Potentially Ruben Diaz could be the big one for Manchester City that's missing. Other than that, it looks like everyone else is going to be okay. So I think based on current form, you've got to look at what happened with the Chelsea game last time out for Manchester City, conceding 4 goals, which is a massive thing for them. However, like I said, Liverpool are either going to be missing their South American players or they're not going to be fully fit going into this one. So I can see it being another very high-scoring game. I just think at home, Manchester City have to still be considered the favourites. I think there's going to be goals at both ends because both sides, especially in this fixture, these sides both tend to concede. We've had a lot of 2-2 draws over the last couple of years. I'm just going to edge it in Manchester City's favour and I'm going to go for 3-2 to Manchester City. But we will see. If there is ever a time for Liverpool to beat Manchester City, it is this weekend. It's just whether or not those South American players are going to be right at it. On to the first of the 3 o'clocks, and we start with Burnley up against West Ham, who quite frankly, both teams could be missing their best players so far this season. Forster looks like he's not going to be Foster is not going to be available up front for Burnley. And Jarrod Bowen could be very crucially missing for West Ham. I don't think that'll affect them too much because they've still got the likes of Kudus and Paqueta and Ben Rama and whoever to play in that second row. But if Jarrod Bowen is out injured, that is a huge, huge loss for them. And I think if he is going to be missing, it really affects their chances of winning the game. I was originally going to go for 2-1 to West Ham. However, I just think Burnley at home, West Ham not on the best of forms in the last couple of weeks leading up to this one. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And believe me, that's not going to be the last 1-1 draw of today's video. Next up is Luton Town taking on Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace actually one of the few teams that have started to get players back over the last couple of weeks. The likes of Eze and Elise making their returns to the side. Luton Town, it's a tough one for them. I always go on about Luton's home record about how they want to impose themselves at home with their physical standpoint and their drop back and counter-attack. However, Crystal Palace are one of the more physical sides in the division and arguably are a more physical side than Luton Town when it comes to those sort of attributes. So, for me, the difficulty, as always with Luton, is I just don't see them being able to break down Crystal Palace defensively. And I just think with that little bit of extra quality, if Eze and Elise are both going to be available for this one, I think Crystal Palace are going to edge it. So I'm going to go for 1-0 to Palace, but we'll see. It's a good opportunity for Luton to get a win at home. Just don't think it's going to be this one. Sorry, Dave. Sorry, Dad. Next up, one of the other games that possibly could have been a televised game between Newcastle and Chelsea. However, if you look at the table, it's just a bog-standard mid-table clash now. So why wouldn't it be a 3 o'clock kickoff? Apologies to anyone offended by that. And these are the two teams that are most affected by injuries and suspensions right now, with there currently being 19 first-team players unavailable across these two sides going into this fixture. Newcastle, of course, lost to Bournemouth last time out. Chelsea got the 4-4 draw against Manchester City. However, crucially for a Newcastle perspective, Bruno Guimaraes will be back in their midfield. And I think purely with him back in the side, it just gives Newcastle that little bit more chance. I thought they were going to struggle to score, but I do again think back to what happened in that Manchester City game. And yes, it was Manchester City, but I don't really think Man City played to their absolute best in that game, and they still scored 4. So I still think without Wilson, without Isak, Newcastle are probably going to score 1 or 2 goals. And with Bruno Guimaraes back in the team, and with how defensively solid Newcastle can be, especially after the international break, which would have given certain players the opportunity to get some much needed rest, think Newcastle just edge it. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Newcastle, but pretty much up until this morning, I also had 2-1 to Chelsea. So we'll see. Right now, my head is saying Newcastle, but we shall see. Next up, it is Nottingham Forest taking on Brighton. Nottingham Forest have lost their big striker, Awoniyi. He's out for several months due to a groin operation, so it's going to be up to Chris Wood to lead the line for them this weekend. Brighton haven't won a Premier League game in their last 6, so it makes it even harder to really call where this one's going to go. They, of course, are missing several key players as well, as we know. And, of course, the big one for them is they don't have Lewis Dunk available once again. So, for me, at home, with Brighton not having Lewis Dunk, I think Nottingham Forest take this one. And I'm going to go for 2-1 to Nottingham Forest. Next up, it is Sheffield United taking on Bournemouth. Sheffield have had a couple of better results in the last few games, albeit due to some very controversial VAR decisions. Bournemouth have played very, very well in the last few weeks and, of course, got the big win against Newcastle last time out. They are probably the sides least affected by injuries at the moment, although Sheffield United have, of course, lost one of their big key players for the rest of the season. Bournemouth don't really have any injury concerns at all, and given the way that Bournemouth have played over the last couple of weeks, I think this is the one where they're going to get a big, big win in the relegation battle, and I'm going to go for 2-1 to Bournemouth. In the evening game on Saturday, it is Brentford taking on Arsenal. Now, again, Arsenal with several players potentially out for this one. No Ben White, no Martin Odegaard, no Thomas Partey. Still fitness concerns regarding Bukayo Saka, considering how little he played for England due to his injury concerns. Brentford, on the other hand, are only really still missing Ivan Toney, so they're going to be up for this one. We know how good Brentford can be, especially at home. We know they're going to deploy that 5-3-2 that they like to do against the big sides. And Arsenal's record against Brentford is not very good since Brentford got promoted to the Premier League. So, as much as I think this is going to be a tough one, I still think Arsenal have to be considered the favourites. I still think Arsenal are going to win this one the way that they have played recently. Is Kai Havertz going to play at left back? Who knows? I just think Arsenal are going to win this one. I'm going to go 3-1 to them. But again, watch this space. Brentford have a very good record against Arsenal, and they're more than capable of turning them over. On to Sunday, and the early kickoff sees Tottenham taking on Aston Villa. And again, all we can talk about is how many players are missing, especially this time for Tottenham. They are going to have a couple of their players back from suspension, but the big key players, the likes of Maddison, the likes of Van der Ven, they're still going to be out injured. Whereas Aston Villa are all guns blazing. They have got a very good team. They are on very, very good form. However, they did lose their last away game critically. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think Spurs are still yet to recover from the losses that they have had in their last few games. They've also basically had their entire squad leave for international duty. So they're going to be very, very tired coming back from all over the world, considering how diverse their team is. I think Tottenham should still be considered the favourites for this one. However, I just don't think they're going to get the win in this one. I'm going to go for 2-2. I think Aston Villa are going to give them a hell of a game. I think it's going to be a really good watch. I just think that that's the way it's going to go. I don't think Tottenham get this one over the line. Into the actual main event slot of the weekend, and it is 10-point deducted Everton taking on statistically the most informed team in the Premier League in Manchester United. If you don't believe that, go check the form guide. Manchester United are top of the Premier League for the last 5 games. So, considering how bad we've been playing, that's quite a hell of a stat, that. That all being said, we are playing Everton off the back of their, like I just said, 10-point deduction. So they're going to be well up for it. Just when you needed anything else to go against Manchester United right now. Also, it looks like Manchester United could be without several of their key players again. Højlund is a massive doubt. Onana looks like he's definitely out injured. Luke Shaw could potentially be rushed back into the starting lineup, having not played for 3 months, which I think would be a mistake when considering Reguilon should still be available. Eriksen's going to be out. Casemiro's still going to be out. So there's a lot of things working against Manchester United on the pitch, and I just think Everton are going to be up for this one as well. I still think we should beat Everton, but this is what I've been saying for a lot of Manchester United predictions recently. We should be winning these games. And yes, we have won 4 of the last 5 Premier League games, but outside of the Premier League, it's not really been going our way. The one result that Manchester United have not had in the league so far this season is a draw, and that is what I'm going to go for. It's a 1-1 draw for me. I just don't think we're quite there yet. I think we're playing better, but we're not quite ready to get a big result away against a team that is going to be well up for it, and a side that's been playing very well recently under Sean Dyche. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Manchester United get the win. I just don't think it's going to happen this weekend. And then finally, it is the Monday Night Football between Fulham and Wolves. Crucially, for this one, João Palhinha is suspended for Fulham, and we all know how crucial he is for Fulham. And without him, I think they've only won 2 matches in the time that Palhinha has been at Fulham when he's not played. So I just don't think Fulham are going to get the result in this one. Wolves are playing some fantastic stuff at the moment. Yes, Pedro Neto is still injured. Yes, Dawson is also suspended for Wolves, which is a massive loss for them as well. However, purely on the grounds that Palhinha is injured and how well Wolves tend to dictate the midfield under Gary O'Neill, I think Wolves are going to come out on top, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Wolves to round off this week's predictions. Thank you very much for watching, as always. I think it's going to be a fascinating weekend of action. Like I say, I genuinely believe all 3 results are a possibility, a genuine possibility in every single fixture this weekend. So rather than you letting me know what you think down in the comment section, let me know what you think would be the biggest upset this weekend, because genuinely, I don't think there could be an actual upset this weekend. I think every result is just a believable result. So let me know what you think the biggest upset will be down in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I will be back with my reaction to the Manchester United game on Sunday.